What's up, Roadrunners? What's up, Bobcats? What's up, Ackies? We'll probably have a lot of different fan bases listening to this episode. This is episode 276 of the Alamo Audible podcast, brought to you by the Dave Campbell Texas Football Republic of Football Podcast Network. This is your host, Jared Kalmus, joined as always by my man, Adrian Bermudez. Adrian, how are you doing, sir?
Doing well, buddy. Doing well. UTSA football is here. It's in full swing, and we've got a home game, a rivalry game. We got big stakes on the line this Saturday in San Antonio, baby. So, yeah, I'm very much excited, very much feeling the energy. I can't wait to get back out into the lots, Jared. It's time.
Here.
It's time.
Weather's looking pretty promising as well, so hopefully a lot of people will be out tailgating and enjoying the return of college football. It's always, for me, a little bit tough to start the season with a road game. I always enjoy the home game because it really feels like the full arrival, right? Like, even a nice game like UTSA had last week, it still doesn't wet the whistle in the same way as, actually getting to meet up with all your friends and cracking open the cold ones in the lots and all that stuff. So this is like the real start of the season for me. You can kind of consider the A&M game an exhibition of sorts, which when we get to the listener voicemail, in a little bit, that will certainly piss off Joe, who left a great voicemail as well.
Yes, absolutely. So we appreciate everyone contributing to the voicemail line. Jared, can you rattle that number off the top of your head for those that want to call in and leave a voicemail,
man.
or text for
I still don't have it memorized, but I did add it to my starred contacts on my phone so I can easily access it at any given point in time. The Alamo Audible hotline is available at 210-660-8259. 210-660-8259. And Adrian and I were discussing off air that we should give a reminder that we don't have like caller ID on this account. So if you're going to text us or leave a voicemail, please provide some kind of identification. You don't have to give your government, but if you want to have like a fun, Feinbaum style pseudonym or something like that, that's cool. But we don't want to give your phone number out, but we also want to identify the texts and calls.
Yeah, we get some really good contributions, and we never know who to give credit to. So give us something we can shout out here for the good takes, and we appreciate everybody's takes. Call in, text in with those hot takes because we want them, and if they're really good, we're going to read them right here on the show. We're going to listen to them even.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, got some good ones this week.
So, absolutely.
Well, Adrian, real quick, before we start recapping this performance against A&M and College Station, I do want to give a quick shout out to some of our new members of the Patreon community this week. Shout out to those that joined us at the Insider tier, including Daryl Jones, Mario Honeycutt, Mondo, and also our Booster tier members, Anthony A., Aaron Alfaro. We also had 2 people upgraded to the Booster tier. Shout out to JB and Alejandro Palacios. Hope I get his name right. He he cornered us at a tailgate one time, like 15 minutes, because we pronounced his name wrong. Hope we got it right this time. Give us a second chance.
Yes, very good.
Also,
very
good opportunity to remind everyone that if you join at the Booster tier through the Colorado State game, you'll receive a free merch drop this year. We cut it off once we get into conference play. So if you're on the fence, the clock is ticking.
Yes, good call, Jared. Good call. Not too late to get a good welcome gift from Alamo Audible, and we appreciate it. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah, those Jared, 2 days of the year when everyone starts getting their merch drops and they're all excited and tagging us in photos and stuff. It always is a nice day for sure, especially for Adrian. I've kind of delegated all of the merch stuff to you, so I'm sure it's nice for you to see the fruits of your labor and people respond well to it. So thanks, everyone. I'm glad you're enjoying the gifts.
Shout out to the Patreons. Jared, UTSA goes down 42-24 in what is reportedly the largest crowd in Kyle Field history. Did I read that right?
No, I think it was like the 5th or 7th largest in Kyle Field history.
Or something. Okay,
it was the largest crowd that UTSA's ever played in front of.
Okay, maybe that's what I read. The largest crowd that UTSA's played in front of was 107,001 in Kyle Field, and they go down by 18 final points thanks to a final second touchdown from UTSA. But for one half of football, played really, really well against the Aggies, and I think that's the half that you really need to focus your attention on. For one reason or another, things sort of got derailed in the second half, and we'll discuss all of that. And I understand it feels like a final scoreboard wise. It hurts because it was close for UTSA to keep it close, and it just got away from them, a couple momentum swings. But for a half of football, they played really, really well. They tested the Aggies a little bit, but they could have really given them a scare in this one, Jared. And I think a lot of UTSA fans feel like they could have really given them a scare. But it's a hard game to go and play an SEC football team in a season opener. But the first time these guys are playing football together, it's a very, very difficult matchup. And when all things are considered, a heck of a performance from the UTSA Roadrunners to go into Kyle Field and play as well as they did for half of football, Jared.
Yeah, I mean it's very very similar to that 22 game in Austin against Texas, right? UTSA hangs tough, they look good, a lot to be encouraged by, a lot of reason to have optimism for the team's performance, but the depth's just not there, right? And it's the way it's always been, it's the way it's always be. You know, when you got 4-star, 5-star guys that are sitting the bench just waiting for their opportunity to, get a lick against a 18-year-old kid at Arkansas with one offer, it's like there's not so much you can do, right? It's just it's a different ball game at that point. But I think all Roadrunner fans should be really proud of how UTSA showed up and competed and performed. Joe Traylor was certainly very enthused by how his team performed. He even went as far as to say in the post-game press conference that what did he say? Like they have championship material or something like that. He essentially said they had the right stuff. Fiber. Yeah, fiber.
Something like that. I think that was the word. Yeah, absolutely. That was good.
I don't disagree because I was feeling the same way watching the game. Like, yeah, this team looks great. They look well composed, well coached, very disciplined. Big difference from last year. But it's also super early to be making those kind of claims. A lot on their shoulders this week to live up to and make sure that hype isn't just moral victory, chest puffing.
So well, he was asked further about it on this morning's presser, and he actually kind of expanded on it and clarified that championship fiber wasn't just in a wins column, but he was really talking about the discipline of the team and sort of the wherewithal and having all bought into the mentality, right, of the triangle, if you will. And that seemed like something that at least held true for a lot of that first half, where you saw UTSA sort of get punched in the mouth a couple of times and just some slip ups, but some just big plays from the Aggies. And that's kind of what they did all night against the Roadrunners, just pop off these really big plays. And we'll get into that. We'll get into Marcel Reed for 4 touchdowns with his hand, and then a 400-yard day from the Aggies. But it's not to scoff at UTSA having 373 offensive yards of their own, and just these really nice, beautiful 5 and sub-minute, 5-minute drives downfield that were 9 plays long and 12 plays long, and just beautiful offensive output. And I think that was the main thing, Jared, for the Roadrunners, was that the UTSA could only hang with A&M in one phase of the game, and that was offense. They could not hang with them defensively. They could not hang with them on special teams. And you can't just win.
I'd push back on that a little bit because, I mean, they took away what A&M... Yeah, they took away what A&M came in planning to do, right? They planned to... Well, I don't know. I mean, I kind of agree with Mike Craven that he thinks that A&M was using this game as a showcase for Marcel Reed. Like, hey, it's a bad secondary. You're going to have one-on-one matchups that you can win.
You talked about this on the preview, Jared.
Right,
you mentioned that on the preview.
I know. But at the end of the day, they took away what A&M is going to ride the rest of the year, right? And that's Le'Veon Moss. That's an offensive line full of NFL draft picks. And UTSA stuffed them, right? They really did not give up much on the ground at all, right? Ruben Owens had 37 yards. Le'Veon Moss had 19 yards. Come on, man. Get out.
Yeah.
Get out. That's pretty impressive. And it's not like they were loading up the box and stacking the box either.
Well, I think from a pass coverage standpoint, UTSA's secondary really got exposed. And this is where A&M was able to pop off the large plays. It wasn't how we expected them to have their large plays and their offensive output. But, UTSA did force them to beat them through the air. Jeff Traylor forced the Aggies to beat UTSA through the air, and they did just that. They were able to expose a very weak secondary and pass coverage from the Roadrunners defense, and that's where this game really got away. and we
Yeah.
couldn't match the offensive output through 3 quarters, 4 quarters. We could only do it for about a half. And a lot of that is, the game getting away from you. You can't make mistakes, especially against an SEC team. And UTSA made just a few too many smaller errors, nothing really grand scale. There were no turnovers in this game for the
Hmm.
Roadrunners. They didn't force any either.
Hmm.
But this was a game where there wasn't anything that went catastrophically wrong for UTSA, but it was a couple plays that certainly got away from them. And A&M took advantage of that. They took advantage of a weak pass protection. And so that's what I mean whenever they kind of got one up defensively, but special teams wise, they didn't quite match the Aggies in every phase of the game where they needed to, for as long as you wanted them to. And then, I understand why that 18-point final score. Thank goodness we got that last second touchdown,
Yeah.
because it at least gave us the spread cover for all you guys that betted on it, but also just for a sake of, it felt more indicative of how UTSA really played against
Actually
this Aggies
performed.
team.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
agree.
they
But
had him. They had him in a good spot. They had him in a good spot for a bit of this game. Their one
yeah,
streak.
and the main reason I kind of push back on the defensive side, not to say that UTSA is going to have some stellar defense or anything like that, is just to say that when you have a start talent disadvantage like UTSA had, you have to pick your poison. And we talked about this on the instant reaction on Patreon, right? Like you've got three major threats for the A&M offense, right? Of like they can run the ball with their strong running game, um, they can throw the ball down the field, or Marcel Reed can take off and run as a scrambling quarterback. And UTSA took away the two things that coming into the game were going to work for them, and they gambled on the one that they weren't sure about. And A&M, to their credit, was able to take advantage of that well enough to win the game by a decent margin. But I think they made the right call. And I also think that as you get into conference play, you're not going to have teams that are strong enough in three distinct areas like that, where you're going to have, you know, uh, have it, bounce back on you as much as it did, right? Because if you
Sure.
go back and look at Marcel Reed's performance, he threw for 289 yards, but the vast majority of those were little screen passes and stuff where he threw it out there to Craver or Concepcion, and UTSA just doesn't have the athletes to run with those guys. And it wasn't even UTSA made mistakes. There were some missed tackles, but they just weren't fast enough and they weren't big enough, strong enough to go get these guys and bring them down to the ground. So they're not going to
Sure.
see that anymore this season, right? There's some teams that have some talented receivers, but those might be guys that are a fifth, seventh round pick. Concepcion, I think, is probably a day two draft pick, first 3 rounds, right? You're not going to win many of those, right? It's whenever UTSA played played Texas a couple years ago, and Bijan Robinson just ran all over him. It's oh, what can he do? He's one of the best players in the country. So, what I'm saying is I can live with it. I'm more concerned about some of the coverage bust that we saw and the
Hmm.
inability for guys to win one-on-ones in the pass rush. UTSA wasn't blitzing, but at least every once in a while for a guy to just win a one-on-one, and there was not a lot of that.
Well, this was the thing, Jared. The UTSA defense starts the game with back-to-back 3-and-outs against the Aggie offense that received the ball first. So right out the gate, you have a 3-and-out from UTSA's defense, and then they do it again on the ensuing Aggie drive, and it seemed like we were attacking the backfield on those two opening 3-and-outs. It seemed like Marcel Reed was under a lot of pressure, and the whole backfield was sort of collapsing relatively quickly. And then it was just something that kind of changed pretty quickly. We stopped seeing that. What did you notice that? What did you see there?
Yeah, schematic, 100% schematic, right? I went back and I watched the game and I did my film breakdown on Patreon as always, and those first 2 drives where they were getting Reed out of the pocket, they were getting him uncomfortable, they were sending 4 or 5 guys to rush. They quickly changed that and they just did 3 to 4, pretty consistently throughout the rest of the game. And there was another period where they got some pressure, I think in the third quarter, but again, they were sending more guys in the blitz. And Joe Traylor said that was really intentional for us because we did not want to blitz and lose containment and then kind of let Marcel Reed have the opportunity to run wild, right? So I can
Mm-hmm.
understand the logic. I don't have a problem with it. Go back and watch Reed's highlights from last year. You'll understand why they did that. But I just hope that going forward, as they play lesser talented opponents, that they're not having to rely on sending five guys to create pocket pressure, because that's been, as hit or miss as the defense has been the last couple of years. That's always been one thing they've had to rely on, is that they would have a Trey Moore, they have a Jamari Robinson who can win a one-on-one, and you don't always have to send a lot of pressure. You can drop coverage and still get pressure on the quarterback. That's, to me, the big question mark right now. Like, I think we all know the secondary is not going to be great. It might be good, it might be decent, but it's not going to be great. And if you don't have a great pass rush, it's going to put a lot of extra pressure on those guys.
Let's talk about the good, Jared. UTSA's offense was dynamite in the first half, completely dynamite. I feel comfortable saying that. There's a sequence there, Jared, where we lead 3 drives downfield, each of them for well over 4.5 minutes, in the double-digit play drive, and there's a field goal, a touchdown, and then a missed field goal. And this is how we end the first half. But just the way that the offense looked on those 3 particular drives was just impressive. They were kind of doing it in every single facet. We had these tremendous holes from the offensive line being opened up for Robert Henry to hit extremely well. Who by the way, if you take out the 75-yard touchdown run, Robert Henry was 6.8 yards per carry. Just a filthy day from him. What a show that he put on. It's unbelievable that we were able to retain him with how much talent he showed. It looks like he's just ready to be the workhorse of this offense. Just what a day. But he had some magnificent pockets to run through. I mean, there was fantastic run blocking the entire night from the offensive line, and you got to throw in Willie Henderson's name as well, who was able to show some bounce and try to move around a little bit, and a great rushing game. But Owen McCown was able to throw some dink and ducks. He was able to throw some hot routes over the middle of the field, and they were connecting there. And those 3 drives were really just a thing of beauty. Really a thing of beauty on those 3 drives to end the first half.
Yeah,
despite
we should have started this podcast talking about the offensive line. To be honest with you, what an incredible performance! I mean, all things considered, maybe one of the most impressive offensive line performances as a unit in UTSA history. Given the level of talent they're going up against, I mean, they're blowing those guys off the line in some cases. Ben Rios was awesome at center. His first start at center, I think it was, right? No major snap issues.
Yes,
they had one that was a kind of fumble exchange.
They had one that hit the ground. Yeah, they had one that hit the ground.
Yep.
You never know what happened there, whose fault it really was.
They were
it's
under
just
center
a
on
sign.
that one. So Owen might not have had his hands, properly nested.
It's not something we do too often.
In the crotch.
Yeah.
It's
a communication thing. They got to work it out. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, his blocking was awesome. I thought both of the guards making their first starts at UTSA played amazing. Daryl Jones and Trevor Timmons, both of them were able to get to the next level. They were moving guys around, getting to the linebacker, just great communication. There were a few free blitzers that came in. But actually, now that I think about it, one of the worst ones was when Corey Godek came into the game. Right? So he was not the starter. I thought both the tackles played pretty well. Kamar Missouri had an amazing block on Robert Henry's first tackle where he bounced it outside, and Kamar won off the line of scrimmage, and then he kind of anticipated a bounce out, and he kind of turned the defender to seal the edge and freed up Henry to go get that. Garth, I think, will let 1 or 2 guys through, but again, when you look at what they're going up against, an incredible performance. Just super, super happy. Obviously, they couldn't hold up the pass protection for long enough to let Owen sit back there for 6 seconds. But if we extrapolate that to lower, to 3-star level talent, I think they're going to be a really great unit this year. And it's cool to see because 2 of the starters weren't even on the field to play most of the game.
Yeah, and Owen was during that sequence moving the ball around a little well. I mean, he would miss here and there, but during that first half when the offense was really firing, he was hitting the tight ends on some beautiful routes. Houston Thomas and Patrick Overmeyer getting involved. And he was able to kind of find those quick hits that he needed, even as the pocket was getting a little bit tighter. I think it was just something that UTSA could only hold on to doing for so long, before Owen was able to get figured out. And then there's also, the question, Jared, of, is the offensive coaching staff keeping some things close to the chest in an opening game against an SEC team? And that's, I think, an argument that you could love or hate, take or leave. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's something to it. I think you can certainly say something about it. Did
Yeah,
you
they
think
definitely
any
didn't
of that was
attack.
present?
They definitely didn't attack the seams with the tight end like they did in the second half of last season. Um, I feel like there were some run plays that they didn't show off that they run quite a bit of. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that could just be what they thought would work best against A&M as well. Who's to say?
Sure.
But I think there was, I saw a lot of people talking about like there's this very specific stretch in the third period where the offense got super vanilla, super, easy to predict what the play call was going to be.
Hmm.
So I feel like there was that one stretch where like that play calling was super conservative, and that did not work out well for UTSA at all. So I guess if I was going to point anywhere for play calling, it'd be like that specific stretch where it seemed like they were just kind of going through the motions a little bit. But overall, I
Right.
mean, the game plan seemed to work, and credit to UTSA to feel like that they could run the ball against a very vaunted A&M defense and end up having a lot of success doing it. Shows a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And Traylor even kind of admitted, if we could have just answered them one time in that third period when
Hmm.
they kind of went on
Hmm.
their little tangent, because it's 21-17 after Robert Henry goes 75 yards to the house on the opening snap of the second half. Are you kidding me? It was a thing of beauty. And all of a sudden, Aggies are kind of a little bit tense, right? UTSA has got all the juice. There's a beautiful camera shot of Robert Henry as he gets to the corner of the end zone doing the money, and everyone is in that section wearing orange and blue. It's a total UTSA section, and they're throwing the money back to him. And all of a sudden, there's just this beautiful thing that's happening, and it does feel like that moment, Jared, against UT after we hit a little string of some trick plays, and I think took a second quarter lead in that game. You felt it. You felt UTSA had some magic going. You stall out, and then it's a couple things. The Roadrunners certainly get, I think, worked, get tired. You kind of start to see that happen. There's that sequence of plays that happens. It's at the end of the day, I do believe in it can be a game of momentum, and whenever those 14 points get rattled off like that, and you have two pretty bad offensive drives, Jared. You talk about play call getting vanilla, but even then, I think there was maybe two opportunities there where you had some blockers in the right spot and you had some
Hmm.
guys kind of move in the right direction, and the pass got away from the receiver. Just something weird, just a
Yeah, that
fluky
there was like
sort of mistake, brain fart.
yeah, there's a smoke screen to Willie McCoy that they threw to the boundary side, and it was not a great throw from Owen. He really rushed that and came out pretty hot, but Willie couldn't come down with it, and like the blockers were there. I mean, I'm not going to say he would have scored for sure, but it would have been a 20-yard gain almost assuredly
Would have
if he'd
been a
been able
first
to come
down. It
down
would
with
have been
that
a
one.
big offensive play. And again, so yeah, I mean, look, it's a game of momentum, and whenever you're going up against a team that is this, physically outmatched, you do have to do all of the right things to keep it close. And we talk about those little errors that get away from the team throughout the game, but that happens. A sequence happens where everything goes right for A&M on two drives, everything goes wrong for UTSA on two drives, and just like that, the game is away from them, and you kind of see the dejection occur. They kind of derail a little bit, and the fourth quarter just kind of goes for A&M at least to the backups, then eventually UTSA to the backups. But it was that close. And then there's just that sequence of offensive drives, that exchange there where it just got away. But we got outmatched, and we got a little bit dejected, I think, as well, to a degree, not just outmatched, because you could argue that Traylor's right. If UTSA can answer, how interesting does it stay? Does it stay until the fourth quarter to the end of the ball game where UTSA can get away from A&M, with a
Yeah,
single
another
digit loss?
another good what if too. That third quarter, Ja'Cavion Rogers, correctly reads a flare route, coming out of the backfield. He jumps in front of it,
Mm,
millimeters away from picking it off. I think it might have actually hit him in the hands, and he would have got six on that easy.
yes.
Or it was almost a backward pass, and he did recover it. So that would have been ruled a backward pass. UTSA would have had the ball pretty much in their own in the A&M red zone right there. So that would have been a huge momentum shift, and I think that would have given UTSA the lead in the third quarter at that time, if I remember correctly. So
Hmm.
just a fun thing to go back and ask what if. But if you talk about upsetting a team like this, you have to have a play like that, and you got to get some luck to get it. And UTSA didn't get that luck, but I think would have really helped and what would have been pretty achievable is like just taking the top off that defense at some point in the third quarter. Because if you go back and you watch those two series we're talking about, that secondary was creeping up big time. They were completely selling out to stop the run. UTSA surely saw that and could not punish the A&M defense for making that adjustment, right? So, I don't know how much of that is play calling versus Owen versus them not trusting the pass protection versus just not wanting to get Owen hit. I mean, I think that was very clearly a priority for them. Coach
Sure.
Traylor said as much in his post-game interview, and I can understand and respect that. But man, it gets old to to not put all the cards on the table in these early
Yeah.
non-conference games year in and year out.
Yeah. Certainly so.
I
Certainly
don't think
so.
we'll have that problem
And
this week, though. I feel safe saying that.
let's wait for Kumbia to
We'll
get
get
to
to.
Texas
We'll get
State.
to.
But yeah,
Uh,
there, dude, yeah, look, a lot of things to be happy with overall, especially Jeff Traylor, being very transparent in his post game interview as well. And he does talk about that sequence where we, missing that field goal was an important stall out there at the end of the first half for UTSA had things rolling, but he says I should have ran it on a 3rd and 6. And then he talked about we shouldn't have kicked that punt directly to KC, and I don't think that that was really coached the way that it should have been. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but he kind of admits to not being prepared to punt that ball schematically the way that they should have been. Because I mean, people were saying it was a low kick, but regardless, it was a kick that went directly to KC Concepcion, and he was able to do what he does with it. But you didn't give him, you gave him all a chance that you could have to do something with
mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah,
Traylor also, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to rant about special teams, but I don't think you're
I
there
think
yet.
no. I think it's okay. No. I think I was only going to say, look, no pre-snap penalties for the offense. There was only one pre-snap penalty that was on special teams, so we can segue with that. But the offense really magnificent and showing a discipline. We talk about the long drives being extremely impressive, but no pre-snap penalties in that environment for this team that was one of the most penalized in the country in 2024 is a thing of beauty to see. And so very, very happy with that.
Yeah, I feel like there was one on Rios. I think he didn't snap the ball on their snap count. I'm not sure if that one got waved off or something.
They have.
And then, there was like that late hit on KK Meyer, but it was pretty borderline.
Oh, yeah,
I think that does not get called in a lot of games because I don't know if he initiated the contact in the end zone or not, but he definitely like started the attempt to contact before he crossed the plane. And, it's ticky-tack. There was also, I meant to call this out earlier, but there was, I think, a punt where a Roadrunner got into like a little scuffle with an A&M player. And last year, you would see single-digit guys out there like trying to keep the fight going, right? And then this year, guys that were not even single-digit went up and grabbed him and were like, "Hey, we're not playing these games, man. Like, get to the sideline. Let's go. It's time to play defense." So that to me was a nice moment of change compared to last year.
Yeah, absolutely so. Absolutely though. So that was a fantastic moment, Jared. And the discipline was there and it showed itself in a couple of different ways. And the team did hold themselves together. And then there was the very first field goal attempt of the season being in Kyle Field, a 36-yarder from the right hash, and it was a laser beam from Michael Pedro, 36 yards, and so that was really good to see. That 43-yarder, he did have the distance, just that came off of his foot wrong. So maybe that's something that could be, worked on and honed in, and maybe we can have a little bit of hope there. Typically, we do kick better field goals in the Alamodome. But Jared, I think overall you saw a lot of disciplinary improvements for this team on a very difficult stage to do that on, but showed much better mental sharpness, I think, between the ears very, very well. UTSA offensively, defensively, a relatively clean day for the Roadrunners compared to what we're used to. I think 4
I feel like the
total.
3 things that we called out as primary concerns heading into the season were all confirmed to be major problems. Really no production at all from the will linebacker position, and Cam Cooper goes down with a season-ending injury. huge red flag. So I'm super concerned with that. Don Munnerlin did play a lot against A&M, which I didn't realize, but it's a bad thing that I didn't realize that he wasn't playing because
Okay,
he didn't get to the quarterback,
of course.
So we'll see how that develops over the span of the year. Secondary, again, huge concern. The corners played better than I expected. It seemed like they hung around for the most part, especially given incredible talent at wide receiver they're going against. But the safeties had some pretty bad missed assignments, tackling was hit or miss across the whole secondary. And then, we knew the place kicker was going to be challenged and missed a 43-yarder, right? So no surprises there, but would have liked a pleasant surprise to not have to be worried about those. So we'll see if UTSA can get those things fixed. And I guess the last thing that we didn't really talk about too much is just Owen McCown's performance in general. I've recently learned there's a lot of Owen doubters still out there, which I was kind of surprised by. I thought he had done enough, over the
Bonkers.
span of last season to earn respect. Evidently not, and did not play very well against A&M. So maybe he still has quite a bit to prove.
He did not play very well against A&M, Jared. It was a tough day for Owen McCown. He did finish 19 for 32. He had no turnovers, despite that one time where him and Ben Rios put the ball on the ground, that snap that we discussed. No turnovers though. Fell right on top of that one, but a very very low 3.8 yard average per completion. I think a big issue, Jared, was sure he was under a lot of attack, but I think he didn't have much opportunity in general to get it to a receiver downfield. But the other part of it is there were a lot of throws that he missed on that where he was a little bit behind a receiver. He was a little bit over the receiver's head. Maybe you could say that they were in range, but they were not favorable catches for those receivers to make.
Mm-hmm.
There was body contortion that had to occur and changing in run paths and all of that sort of thing. McCown was just a little bit off, more so than what we're used to seeing from him. The stage was bigger, but he's seasoned. We've seen him do well on larger stages. But overall, a lower grade day for him, a lower grade day. And I think that was a tough thing. And UTSA's running attack, Robert Henry in particular, was so good that I think it takes a little bit of the attention away from Owen. But he's got to be great. He does have to be great. And it was a tough day. It was a tougher defense, but one that had as many question marks of their own as we did going into it at the beginning of the year. And this is an offense that we know that can put up points, I think. So we expected more. I think we definitely expected more from Owen McCown and maybe his receivers as well on the day.
Mm-hmm. Not a lot of separation.
No.
For me, I think the saving grace of Owen's performance is like when he did miss, he did tend to miss in the right places. What I mean by that was he was throwing away from the defender, right? So if like the pass was high, it was like high away from the defense, or if it was outside towards the sideline, which is different than like if you think of his RB game last year or his FAU game that he struggled a little bit. Some of his misses there were towards the defender and they got picked off. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that was intentional or not on his part, but I thought he did a good job of just managing the game in that aspect and, really avoiding those risky throws. So I'm not concerned. I think we'll have a big bounce back game this week. A huge difference in secondary talent for Texas State compared to A&M. So I think he'll bounce back just fine and have a great season.
Jared, any other large takeaways for you after Texas A&M?
AJ Wilson has earned more snaps. I thought he'd be in the rotation right off the bat. He didn't come in until garbage time. Immediately caught a 34-yard touchdown on a back shoulder fade from Brandon Tennyson, the backup. So I definitely want to see him out there on Saturday, early and often.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I love that. All right.
All right. Well, let's put a bow on A&M with some of the listener input that we received through text and from voicemail. I guess I'll read the text message off first, and we'll do the two voicemails. So again, we don't have caller or text ID on these, so we don't know who it's from. But this person says, I was at the game. I'll say A&M fans are deeply concerned with how UTSA handled A&M for a while. Clearly, we just got gassed in third and fourth quarter. I was concerned with McCown's accuracy and lack of any deep balls, but I bet that clears up against American opponents. Robert Henry is the freaking man.
I love this simple recap takeaway. It's really spot on. A&M fans being deeply concerned with how UTSA handled A&M for a while is a great way for you to feel. If we had some Aggie fans on edge, being just these UTSA Roadrunners, they thought they were going to walk all over. That's a fantastic sign. We did get gassed. We did get gassed at the second half. Robert Henry is the freaking man, and I think being concerned with McGowan's accuracy is probably the number one thing that people are concerned with after watching that ball game. I expect Owen to be better. I think he will be better at home. I think it will be better against Texas State. He should have been better against A&M, and I think it's a fair critique. He didn't have his best game as a Roadrunner. He did not have his best game, and he had a lot of chips on the table, had some family ties to College Station,
Mm-hmm.
but it is what it is, dude. He didn't look good. He's got to shake that off. He's got to shake that off, and maybe that was still him showing a little bit of youth there, Jared, and that's okay. I think still. But he's got to grow past that. He's definitely got to grow past that.
All right, we'll keep moving to our first voicemail. This one's from a frequent call-in, long-time listener, 2-name Mindframe.
Hey guys, it's 2-name Mindframe. So I put out a couple tweets about this, and I just wanted to verbalize it, but that was the most impressive looking UTSA team we've ever had. There's normally when you play teams that like A&M, LSU, those types of teams, and you're, a group of 5, group of 16, it's pretty telling, right? You could see some obvious size advantages or disadvantages pretty quickly, and I really didn't notice that, from UTSA against A&M. Like, we looked from a physical standpoint pre-snap like we belonged, and that was pretty impressive to see. Like,
Yeah, so my friend talks about the size kind of parity that they had against A&M, and that's definitely true. But I think what really impressed me, especially if you look in the trenches there, is like UTSA's had guys of this size in the past, but they haven't had the level of like agility, flexibility, strength, and balance to really brawl in the trenches, right? It's not just like having these big guys that lean on the defender or on the offensive lineman and just kind of sumo wrestle up there, right? Like that's a really low level play where you can get away with that. When you're at this level of play, you have to have the full technique, right? You have to have the footwork. And that's what I really liked seeing out of UTSA, right? It's not just like they were able to go blow for blow, pound for pound, bench press for bench press, squat for squat. They were moving around out there, right? They were creating those angles, they were doing the seal blocks, they were chipping, they were double teaming, all that good stuff, right? If UTSA can continue to do that, oh yeah, like this running attack is gonna be really good with all the talent they have in that running back room. And I don't see any reason why they can't just do this at an even higher level when they face teams that don't have 5-star defensive linemen lined up against them.
Is this why Robert Henry was able to run the ball so well? These holes that we were talking about earlier is because the offensive line is more advanced from a technical standpoint based off of what you saw.
I think that's some of it. I don't think it's so much teaching the technique, but executing it. I think the conditioning is big too. Like we saw a big focus on conditioning in the offseason. Guys were holding their blocks for longer, right? Like that first touchdown run that Robert Henry had, some of Will Henderson's good runs as well. They can't do that if those linemen don't stay latched onto those blocks and keep moving their feet. And last season, there were definitely occurrences where the guys would be at a standstill with the defense and then just kind of wane in their blocks a little bit, and the defense can disengage and go chase down the running back. So, great to see there. Hopefully, these guys stay healthy and continue to do that.
They're built better, and that was we even actually had Jeff Traylor give a big compliment to Coach Philo and his regimen. Even that in the I think presser this morning, he mentioned that. So that was that's impressive, man. That's impressive to see from the offensive line. Could definitely be a force, I think, following week one. I think whenever you see them against some lower level talent at the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
Yeah, great push. Great push from those
All
guys.
right, we'll wrap it up with our last voicemail of the week. Fair one is the hot take for sure. Adrian and I listened to it earlier. We both disagreed with it. We're like, it's a very respectable take. So we're going to play it and curious to hear what you guys think.
Hey, what's up? This is Joe, and I just want to give my hot take on this game. Seems like there's a lot of kumbaya, a lot of excuses being made by the fan base. We just got our butts whooped on national TV by 18 points. So I'm not really seeing all the positivity. It doesn't matter that this is an SEC team, that they're ranked 19th in the country, that they've been playing football 100 years longer than us, that their NIL budget is 50 times ours. None of that matters. It's the same Texas A&M program that barely beat Bowling Green at home last year by 6 points. It's the same Texas A&M program that lost to App State at home 3 years ago. None of these excuses matter. If we want to be an elite, respected G5 program, we have got to start performing better and taking it to these Power 4 teams in these out-of-conference games.
I feel where Joe is coming from, dude. I totally
Joe
understand
from the top
it.
rope, baby.
I think it's a valid take to have, Jared, just because that scoreboard got away from us, because the game got away from us. And again, watching this game, it did feel like we were very close to hanging around, at least for longer than we did. And when it broke away from us, I think it was crushing to the very, very hopeful UTSA fan that was watching that thought we were going to keep it a little interesting for a little more, a little bit longer length of time. Look, man, it is hard, but I think also to combat Joe, it does matter that they have quadruple NIL or 10 times the NIL that we do, and that they're number 19 in the country for that reason, and an SEC team for that reason. But yeah, it's a blue chip. But I think even larger than that, it's also the very first week that this new UTSA defense has played together. And so, yeah, we've had our question marks about them for a lot of different reasons, but it's also because they're all kind of new names taken off in these starting positions for us. And so there's a lot to be answered about that. But dude, I think there's a lot to be happy with the UTSA offense. You got to be happy with what you saw from the run game. There's no way you can't be impressed with what you saw from the run game.
To speak, to kind of the big picture stuff that Joe was talking about as far as like the program as a whole, UTSA is still in the crawl phase, right? And it's walk, crawl, run. We're very much still in the crawl phase. And that's okay, because for me, like, their crawl is getting a little bit faster, right? If we can pair this performance against other Power 4 performances in the past, we beat Baylor that one time also, don't forget. But I just think this is a more whole performance from UTSA. Athletically, they looked more belonging on that stage than they ever have in the past. And when it comes to like beating these Power 4 teams, like a lot of times your opponent has to play poorly or you have to get lucky. And UTSA got neither of those against A&M. I mean, if A&M really shit the bed, look at what Preston Stone did for Northwestern against Tulane this past week. He threw 4 interceptions. If Marcel Reed threw 4 interceptions, UTSA wins that game. But he played well, right? And they're just mismatches that you can't get around, right? Because you don't have that 10x NIL budget. So it does matter, and it is fair. And I understand the frustration for sure, but I would be more frustrated if it felt like UTSA was going backwards in these games. But I see them performing better for the most part on a trend line. So it's easier for me to swallow, I suppose. It'd be nice to go have one of these games against a lesser P4 and see how UTSA performs, because having Texas A&M for like 3 or 4 years straight, it's not like the best measuring stick, because I'm more curious to see how we compare with Baylor and Oklahoma State and programs like that where there's less of a talent gap.
Sure thing. Well, Jared, I think that is pretty thorough on A&M.
Yep.
There's the big stakes on the table this Saturday for the UTSA Roadrunners. Big stakes, rivalry stakes, vengeance stakes with Texas State.
Yep. Big stakes on the field, big stakes, for bragging rights, but there's also big stakes in the tailgating lots. We got to show up, we got to show out, and be sure to go out and support the many great tailgates that sponsor this podcast, including the members of, how's that segue, dude? That's pretty good. Including our board of trustees members, Digiteek, John Otwell, Gary and Ruben represent the UTSA Burgate tailgate, where everyone is welcome. I'll be there. Come say hi, see me on Saturday. Ray Redding, Andy Elizada, Proficient Benefit Solutions, Ian McClendon, Seeker LLC, Joanne Townsend, President of the DFW chapter of the UTSA Alumni Association, Waterman Construction, UTSA Annual Giving, Brandon Patron, UTSA King Bowser, and Runners United, where you can go to www.goutsa.co to support UTSA student athletes and put a little money in their pocket so we can 10x that NIL budget and get on A&M's playing field. We'll hit you guys with a quick Kubia break, and we'll come back to preview the next iteration of the I-35 Showdown. All right, guys, welcome back from the Kubia break. And, just jogged my memory with the first tailgate of the year coming up. I do want to give a PSA. We've gotten requests to have the Cumbia music on people's tailgates playlist. So if you want the full audio, hit us up. I'll send you the MP3 file. Would love to hear it out there. If you guys want to record a video of it at your tailgate, that would also fill our heart with joy. So hit us up if you're interested. But Adrian, it is rivalry week. It has come fast for sure. I think everyone's expecting a good game. I think the teams are pretty even. Granted, I said that last year, and Texas State whooped that ass. So
this is wow. It feels like very shortly removed from one of the most dejected I've felt as a UTSA Roadrunner fan, and one of my lowest points of fandom leaving a game as early as I did in San Marcos. But it was
only
brutal.
time I've ever left a game in the third quarter, ever. 15 seasons of football, that's the only time.
It was brutal, Jared. It was extremely brutal to sit there and watch us get taken out back behind the shed and whooped in every single facet of the game in San Marcos. In a game that at the time had big stakes on it. Not a team panned out being as strong as I think the preseason had guys at. But look, when we talk about stakes for last year, let's talk about stakes here. I hold last year's loss to Texas State as the worst performance in UTSA football history. That's an arguable topic for a different podcast entirely. But for me, it wasn't just getting smoked by your local geographic rival, but one that you had dominated for so long that it just felt like, and don't get me wrong, a lot of those UTSA wins were like a one possession win, but it felt like you dominated. You felt like you dominated that series because you were undefeated. But also, I don't know, for some reason, I think for UTSA football, Texas State for us felt like they were further away from us in terms of football program hierarchy echelon, and I think that game gave UTSA fans a scare that maybe we're on closer footing than we think. And now it feels like even more so with Texas State making a big splash going to the Pac-12. The equal footing is starting to seem inevitable if UTSA cannot continue to get W's over the Texas State Bobcats, because now we're starting to talk about intangible items that we compete with against Texas State. So not just on the football field, but also off the football field in terms of recruiting battles and in terms of just the hierarchy and prestige level of your football program. That's one that you have to keep winning in order to hold, I think, that belief. For fans, this is one that determines your home attendance average for 2025. UTSA's got to come out here and deliver, I think, if you want to have that Alamodome crowd looking good for the rest of the season. We know we can be fickle in that regard as well. But Jeff Traylor himself, very proud of him for this, not biting his lip at all when asked directly about getting whooped last season changes the rivalry stakes at all. And Traylor very straightforward gave like a 4-word response. It better intensify something. It better intensify something. So damn right, there's a little bit of personal vendetta for the Roadrunners, and we're finally admitting to having that game circled on the schedule. And so I think these Roadrunners are ready to go out there and take it. That was all I needed to hear from Jeff Traylor. With straight face as he looked in this morning's press conference, Monday's press conference.
Yeah,
He meant it.
fans are
He
always
meant
like,
it.
"Oh, like that was another team's Super Bowl," like in a derogatory term. That was definitely the case last year. Like Texas State was way more up for that game than UTSA was. They were lollygagging. They were going through the motions. I think they got there late. I remember that might have been a thing. But that is not to like diminish Texas State's performance at all because they did what they were supposed to do. UTSA did not. And you have to show up to every game like it's the Super Bowl, man. You got to show
Yes.
the passion, the fire. You got to hustle. You got to want it more. And when you don't, you can get beat by a much worse team. So that was great to hear Jeff say that. And, he has a lot of funny motivation tactics. So I hope they find something that works for these guys and they come out from, the first snap of the game looking for blood.
Yeah, it feels like the first time that this rivalry really feels like a rivalry for me, because it does feel like for the first time UTSA really and truly has something more intangible, even, I think, to start to lose against Texas State. And there's a real pressure that I feel for UTSA to go out there and make sure that they win this game over their rival. I'll be the first guy to really inflate a rivalry game as much as I can. But I do feel it this time around. I really do. And I'm hoping for a strong a strong UTSA team against a strong Texas State team. This is not a gimme. I think a lot of Roadrunner fans look at a Texas State program that's had some turnover roster wise and think that UTSA can just go and get this. This is not a give me game. Last year, Texas State, even if the roster is a little bit different, UTSA's same exact staff and Texas State's same exact staff outcoached and out schemed UTSA just horrifically on every single snap of the season. So that there's no way this game is a gimme game. It might not be for a really, really long time. This game might continue to just have really, really high stakes on it for both teams. But look, man, the number five offensive output last season, the Texas State Bobcats. You think they recycle a lot of their offensive talent, but then they come out against Eastern Michigan. They put up 52 points on the board. They put up 600 yards of total offense, over 600 yards of total offense. It's still a very high output offense, and I think it's one that you have to continue to respect, even under, a redshirt freshman quarterback in Brad Jackson. Texas State clearly still has good output, and it's not just from Brad Jackson, who had four touchdowns on the day, but from an unbelievable three-headed monster running back that Texas State also touts. So there's a lot going on for the Bobcats offensively, Jared. A lot of things that the Roadrunners need to take down and be prepared to go up against.
Yeah, I think the worst fear when you look at Texas State is it's just the GJ Kinney system, and they're going to be able to reload every year no matter what happens. And the first game against Eastern Michigan pointed in that direction, right? They lost their offensive coordinator, Mac Leftwich, who has been with Kinney for a long time and is kind of considered to be a offensive creative savant. He's at Texas Tech now. They promoted internally, took the Traylor route and, pull guys up and develop them and all that. And the offense looked a little bit different. I mean, less air raidy, less of stretching the field vertically, but still a lot of that same tempo and just a great ability to scheme guys open. They lost their quarterback. Like Adrian said, they've got a redshirt freshman out there, Brett Jackson. He actually has played his senior season of high school in San Antonio. I don't know if I'd go so far as call him a local San Antonio kid because he was a Houstonian up until that senior year when he transferred to Reagan. But still, a guy that played his senior year in San Antonio that was not really recruited by UTSA. I don't know if he's got a chip on his shoulder about that or not. But, he's more of a dual threat kind of guy, right? He's not a crazy arm talent like you've seen from TJ Finley, who had the deep ball ability, and then from Jordan McLeod, who was kind of craftier, could place balls better, read the defense really well. But what we saw out of Jackson in his first start, he's a steady player, right? They didn't ask him to do anything really insane of throwing 30-yard corner routes and trying to throw the post route over 3 levels of the defense or anything like that. But, he did what was asked of him, and, he avoided turnovers. He had one fumble that they were able to recover. And he didn't make a lot of like really erroneous throws, just kind of managed the offense and got Bo Sparks wide open and hit Bo Sparks up for 4 touchdowns. And, that was enough, right? He didn't do a whole lot with his legs, but the threat was there, right? So big challenge for him. His first road start in the Alamodome. It's going to be an insane environment, probably 40,000-ish people, if I had to guess, based off what I've seen on the Ticketmaster map so far.
Rocking.
So, yeah, we'll see. But the good news for Jackson is he's got some help.
This was of the 606 total offensive yards, the running a game, the three-headed running attack for Texas State had 392 of those yards, nearly 400-yard day from Texas State running backs. It's pretty filthy. So, yeah, offense clearly still has some output that they can generate. Jared Bo Sparks lives up, I think, to his last name. He's a guy that can actually get pretty well open downfield. Texas State, their run game being so well. Jeff Traylor said something interesting, that Texas State has the largest offensive line in the country. Texas A&M had the second largest, and so that UTSA was starting off its season against the two largest offensive lines in the country. Is it true Texas State's offensive line is this big, and this is a big reason why that they're able to run for nearly 400 yards between their three running backs on week one?
Yeah, they're huge. And, also Eastern Michigan was really small up front. So it was like pretty stark difference watching them just swallow up that defensive front for EMU. Like, I think Eastern Michigan had like a 6'2", 180-pound outside linebacker. Just no chance. They had like a 5'11", 290 nose tackle. No chance. So they've definitely got the size. They've got the girth. They're a very physically imposing group for sure. But I think us UTSA fans can attest bigger is not always better when it comes to the offensive line. Like, we've definitely been burned with that before. I mean, think of how much difference they made last year when Ben Rios came in as a starting guard, and like you replace a 350-pound offensive lineman who can't move that well with a guy who can pull and who can get up to the linebacker and keep his feet moving and all of that. So we'll see. I'm really curious to see if they have as much success against a more athletic defensive front for UTSA that is deep and can rotate, and it's going to be fresh for 4 quarters. That's probably like the key matchup, I think, to watch on the defensive side. If they can slow down that rushing attack and really put the game on Brad Jackson's shoulders, which he didn't have to do last week, I think UTSA is probably going to be a pretty advantageous position there.
Okay. About Texas State's defense. We spent a little time jumping into that.
The defense is same as last year, man. I mean, new names, new faces, but the strategy hasn't shifted at all. They're boom or bust, man. They're going to load the box. They're going to still up to get penetration. They're a one-gap defense, right? So they're not going to try to read and react. They're just going to go, and they're going to roll the dice, and they're going to hope that, either they're rushing into where you're running to, or they're going to slip past and get to the quarterback really quickly. They love to blitz. They're super blitz happy. They play their safeties really far back because they're so aggressive in the front that they have, that kind of cap over the defense to make sure that not every one of those missed assignments is going to be a massive play, right? The problem with that, though, is their tackling looked pretty bad against EMU, a team that does not have a lot of like really high-level athletes, right? So that's going to be, I think, the biggest challenge for Texas State in this game is like, can they get Robert Henry to the ground? Can they get David Amador to the ground on first contact? If not, this is going to be a huge shootout for sure. So they have a lot of needs to improve there. I think the two guys that I kind of circled to look out for is Khalil Alexander. He's their top pass rushing threat. I don't have his stats pulled up, but he had a lot of sacks last year, 8 or something like that. He's a really good player, definitely one to watch. And then they picked up, UTSA got Brandon Tucker from East Texas A&M. And there was also cornerback Jalen Rios from the same school that Texas State picked up. He's a day one starter for them, 6'3", a little skinny, a little spiry, but he's very explosive. They were using him as a blitzer actually on corner blitzes, and he got home for a sack against EMU. So it'll be interesting to see. He's got pretty good range on him, so we'll see how he does against UTSA's receivers.
Yeah, definitely so. Yes, Khalil Alexander, 6.5 sacks in the 2024 season. Traylon Payne led the team in tackles uh, last week, and I think just overall Texas State, a lot of really good roster names on here. You got Traylon Payne
Yeah, another San
leading
Antonio
the
kid.
defense in tackles. Another San Antonio kid, a Converse kid, actually. Yeah, so they've got a couple of names on defense, but I think you're right, Jared. And there's a lot here. You talk about them missing a lot of tackles. We saw how good Robert Henry was last week against A&M, a pretty girthy defense there, and you got to feel excited about maybe his ability to take advantage about getting to the second and third levels as a running back going up against this
Mhm.
defense. Um, yeah, and then you had McCown really struggling for time in the pocket, sort of all night long against A&M. Is UTSA's offense going to be uh, much stronger against a defensive line that is more their caliber, more their same footing? So I think that's still a big question mark. Based off of what you saw UTSA's offensive line doing against A&M, are you confident in how they'll do against an opponent like a Texas State or someone in the American Conference?
Generally, yes. Texas State's approach is so unique, though, because we saw it last year, right? Like they're go 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 go. They are not gonna fire out of the stance, get position, and read and react. They're just going. They're heat-seeking missiles, right? Like, it's kind of funny sometimes if there's like an illegal procedure or something, and like the play stops dead right after the ball snapped, and like how deep in the backfield Texas State defenders already are because like they're not even looking up, like they're just going right, and they want to get that penetration and mess up a defense. And UTSA struggled mightily with that last year. They weren't ready for it, and frankly, they didn't have the right guys up front that had the speed and the quickness to respond to that kind of play. So hopefully it does not catch them off guard this year. There are ways to defend against that, and UTSA did try to do some of them last year of like, the quick hitting passes, the screen passes, running north and south and all that didn't work, right? Um,
Yeah.
I think it was Houston Thomas that had a big catch up the seam as a tight end, and that's another way that you
Yes.
attack that kind of a defense, right? But they didn't go to it often. That it was kind of later in the season that UTSA really started mixing in that kind of tight end slip kind of play. So I think that UTSA has the weapons to take advantage of this attacking defense, but they have to win at that point of attack and not let that penetration happen. And they can't be playing slow, dancing around the backfield. It's one cut and go, north and south. And if it's not there, you got to bounce outside quickly. So that's why I think Will Henderson could have a really good game this week because he's got the speed. Like we saw him do some of those bounce outs, against A&M last week. And he doesn't like really seek out contact as much as Robert Henry does. So that could be interesting to see because I think, when that defense is going a certain direction and you can bounce out the other way before they can respond, you can make a big play happen that way as well.
Based off of Texas State's offensive output, over 600 yards, 50 burger against an Eastern Michigan, but it's so much offensive output. Were you a little surprised at how well they were able to score ball in their week one, considering, new faces, turnover at the quarterback position and wide receiver position, offensive line
Maybe a
position?
little bit. I didn't think that the offensive attack would slow down because I think Kenny's such a great offensive coach and he's a
Mm-hmm.
great evaluator talent. I mean, he's one of the best in the business at finding these guys that didn't play a lot of their previous school or came up from a lower level, and even the high school kids that he's picked out, like they've not in a lot of cases been very highly recruited, and have done really good. What was the name of the guy? He was a wide receiver that didn't use gloves. He was from like Utah
Yeah,
Tech or something like that last year. You know what I'm talking about, right?
that would be the guy that caught 4 touchdowns. That's Bo.
No, different
It
guy
was
other
it
than
was
Bo.
from Utah Tech.
Or is that Bo Sparks? I think there's another guy I'm thinking of too.
I'd be shocked that there were 2 guys from Utah Tech, but
Okay,
I
yeah,
know
maybe
Bo.
not. Then maybe the same
I
guy.
know Bo Sparks. I
Um,
know Bo Sparks did go to Utah Tech though.
okay, yeah, maybe I'm getting two guys confused, but just his ability to find these kind of lesser recruited players and like really turn them into a star is very very impressive.
Sure.
So that's why like when I saw the Texas State people hyping up Brett Jackson, I was like, okay, there must be something here, right? Because DJ Kinney knows quarterbacks, and he could have got quarterbacks to play in the system as he's done many years in the past, and if he's comfortable with this guy, there must be something there. I was a little bit surprised at how well they ran the ball. I mean, Lincoln Perry was unstoppable. He had like 11 or 12 yards per carry or something like that. So that was very impressive for sure. And we'll see if they're able to keep that up. They're using the tight ends more this year as well. A lot more 11 and 12 personnel from them, whereas they were doing a lot of 10 personnel in the past. So one thing to watch there for sure. So I don't know. I mean, I think the matchup for what they're trying to do in offense this year is probably better for UTSA's defense than the matchup last year. I'm just more concerned about the offense on UTSA's side being able to handle that like blitzkrieg style of defense because they really struggled with it last season.
Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, it is something that you got to be worried about to a degree. Yeah. Lincoln Perry's his 6th-year senior. He's a grown man running the football for Texas State, and that's a position that they did reload at. And I think that their offensive output that they had against Eastern Michigan is something to be a little bit concerned about. I think they're going to be a team that is going to bring it just as they did last year. It's going to come down to if UTSA is ready to play as good as they should this week. And I don't know, based off of what I saw against A&M, there's a lot that needs to be tightened up, I think, for UTSA's offense. So, this game is starting as it gets closer, Jared, to become more and more, I think, worrisome of it being a very, very close contest. And it could just be one possession, one bounce that decides it for either team. I do think it's going to be extremely closely contested. UTSA is just a 4.5-point favorite as of this recording. So Vegas has it as one possession, one touchdown, I should say. I'm on edge, Jared. I'm on edge. I'm confident this Roadrunners team is going to win, but it's going to be one that is, going to make your heart skip a beat, I think, a couple of times.
By the way, that other receiver, also from Utah Tech, Joey Herbert, was the guy I was thinking of.
I think that's crazy.
Mr. Joe Dirt. Yeah,
you're talking about finding guys.
Too wild.
He's talking about finding diamonds in the rough. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 white boys from Utah Tech turned that program around, got him into the Pac-12. That's nuts, man.
Hey, Bo Sparks is from El Paso, Texas, dog. So let's not put too much on him. Okay, so Jared, yeah, how do you feel? Where's your prediction headed? Yeah,
yeah. I don't think there's any reason to feel confident if you're a UTSA fan. To be honest, They lost a lot. They lost a lot from last year, but Kenny's really good, right?
Yes.
If they hadn't performed as well as they did against EMU, and granted, Eastern Michigan's not a great team. They were picked to finish like 6th or 8th in the MAC, which is a horrible football conference at this point. They had their starting quarterback was like the 3rd-string guy from Coastal Carolina last year, a team that UTSA smoked. Now, granted, the quarterback that UTSA saw was like their 4th or 5th-string guy, so he was better than the guy that UTSA beat. But still, a very convincing performance, and they looked really good. I mean, they look like they haven't lost a beat. They look very comfortable. I'm going to pick the Roadrunners because they're at home. And, I think that UTSA's linebackers and defensive line are going to get after it. And I think they're going to put Texas State in a level of having to respond to adversity in a way that they did not have to last week. And I think they're going to make life a lot more difficult for a redshirt freshman making his first road start. And I think he's going to have to make some big plays for Texas State to win this game. So I'm just thinking that UTSA's level of experience and continuity is going to win out a little bit here. But we'll see. I mean, like I said, I don't think there's any reason for a UTSA fan to go in and think, oh yeah, it's time to right the ship, baby. 6-1, and then the I-35 Showdown. You can be confident if you want. I just don't see a good reason to feel that way based off the evidence that we've seen thus far.
That's where I'm at. I'm on edge. It's really got me on edge. I already feel nervous. I have an anxiety about this matchup Saturday, Jared, but I do agree with you that the Alamodome makes things much more advantageous for UTSA. But there's a lot of tightening up that needs to happen in the passing game for McCown and his targets, his wide receivers. They have got to be so much tighter. He's got to have much cleaner pockets. You talk about the blitzkrieg that Texas State likes to run. So it does feel, matchup wise, that there's going to be a lot on both sides that are going to make things very interesting. Jared, I do think it's going to come down to the wire. It's going to be one play, one possession, one mistake difference between these two teams that'll ultimately make it a one possession finish here. But it's going to be a great way for things to get opened up in the Alamodome week 1. The crowd is going to be incredible. But as far as what the output is, if Texas State were to win in San Antonio, it feels extremely brutal. It's just like one of those things that just cannot happen for this team. Like they just can't happen. You can't lose to UTSA. I'm sorry, UTSA cannot lose to Texas State 2 years in a row. They cannot lose in the Alamodome to Texas State. That cannot happen. It just feels like it cannot happen. And I think there's a lot of guys that were on this offense last year that laid an egg, that remember laying an egg. And that sits really nasty in their mouth. So I do expect for the offense to be very tight and very good on Saturday because they do have to at least get that much right. But yeah, it doesn't feel like, this is the vengeance game that we're just going to go out there and just take this thing back. It's going to be a dogfight this week, Jared. Do you have a score prediction?
I think it'll probably be a little bit lower scoring than people might think. But when I say that, I'm talking like 35-32. UTSA taking it. Texas State cover the spread.
Yeah, I've got it actually extremely close to that. Jared, I think it's going to be a 31-34 game. UTSA, just a field goal separation, 3 points. And
Who's taking the field goal, man?
It's going to end. Well,
I don't think it's guy now.
No, I just think that it's going to be that'll be the difference in the game, but that might not necessarily be how it ends, man. It could be one of those situations where Texas State is in position to go downfield and tie it or take a late lead, and maybe defense holds up and gets that electric turnover or fourth down stop with, a minute 9 left to play, no timeouts left for Texas State. We take that thing home. But I think it's going to be on the edge of your seat. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I think one thing holds true, and there's one thing that has to be said, and it has to happen for UTSA. As good as Robert Henry is going to be and is, it's up to Owen McCown to take this offense as far as they need to go. He did not do that against A&M. He's got to do it against Texas State for UTSA to have a chance.
Beautifully said. So, I think that's the best way to end this one. It's on Owen. It really is.
It's on Owen. It's on Owen. Big stakes.
He's supposed to be the best player. He's supposed to be the best quarterback in this game. And usually the team with the best quarterback at home wins the game. So let's see it, Owen.
Right.
Prove the limited number of doubters left wrong, and get this pendulum on the right side again.
And we know Owen will do it. He's the man to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, we've got a lot more content coming your way this week. I'm going to be on the Republican Football Podcast tomorrow night with our good friend of the pod, Kef Chardello. He's been covering Texas State for forever. You guys know him. You guys love him. Every year, people are always asking, when are you going to get Kef on? So we're going to be on with Mike Craven on Republican Football. So that's going to be a really good time. Looking forward to that. And of course, as always, we'll have a bonus episode for our Patreon subscribers this week. This week is a monumentous one for UTSA because it is the official merger week of UTSA and UT Health San Antonio to make the new combined UT San Antonio University. A lot of emotions about those changes for sure, but it's a really good thing for all parties involved. So on Patreon this week, we'll be talking about the history of UT Health San Antonio to give, all of the UTSA alumni and fans an introduction to that institution, what they bring to the table, what the merger is going to look like, what their facilities are like, where's their research at, all that good stuff. So we've been meticulously researching it for several months. I'm really excited to put that one to wax and get it out to you guys. It's going to be a fun one.
Indeed. So excellent stuff. And we're certainly excited to be in the full swing of things. Jared's got a film recap on our Patreon. We had an immediate reaction the morning after the game, as we do every single week during football season. That is also available on Patreon. As Jared said, we've got more Patreon content coming. It's every single week. You get 2 episodes if you're subscribed. Technically, you get 3 if you include the instant reactions. Really 3, which Jared and I, in natural fashion, have got to a point now where we just sort of extend that initial call into a pretty good little episode for you guys to take off the top. And I gotta say, big thank you to everyone who makes it possible. That's our big money donors with Ben Tovar, the Bunch family, Zach Espericueta, and the San Antonio Podcast Network, Alejandro Benavides, Dan Nerdall, our host of Around the Birdbath, Jacob Cavazos, former president for the UTSA Alumni Association, John Nally, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, Sumner McDaniel, Joe Rodriguez, UTSA grad 1998. Home Field Apparel, where you can use the discount code UTSA Wants Home Field and save 15% off of your first order. You can also go to the alamoaudible.com fan shop to get game day gear outfitted. Yes, indeed. It's rivalry week, baby. A must win.